Hi everyone, this is Dayu from EcommOps. Today I want to talk about US shipping, Aliexpress US shipping, or some agents offering US shipping. And by the way, when I say US shipping, I also mean EU local fulfillment or UK local fulfillment. Now, I want to talk about unless you actually know that they have a well-stocked warehouse with your product, why it's a risk to your business. I'm going to talk about how it actually works most of the time and why it doesn't usually work like you think it actually does. If you follow me for a while and read my posts, you know that I've said this a lot, but today I really want to do a more of a deep dive on exactly how it works so you understand what's going on here and how you could protect yourself and think about this option and comparing with other options as well. All right, so a couple of things we're going to go over today. First, we're going to talk about a little bit of a background. How did AliExpress US shipping or local shipping become all of a sudden so popular? It started happening around last year or so in 2019. Second, I want to talk about how it actually works and why trusting it for scaling is a huge risk. And again, I'm talking about AliExpress US shipping or maybe the US shipping that some small agents offer. I'm not talking about real US shipping, like sending your warehouse somewhere. And then finally, I want to talk about what better alternatives you should be considering if you really want to improve your shipping speeds. All right, so let's talk about how or why AliExpress US shipping all of a sudden just became so popular last year in 2019. So if you're in e-commerce, if you're in drop shipping and you watch YouTube videos, I am sure that somewhere in the middle to late of 2019, you saw a ton of YouTubers talking about the secret sauce. They found amazing shipping speeds and it's going to change up your business. And I'll just be very, very straightforward here. You know, there are a lot of YouTubers I do respect, but a lot of folks out there, they were just pretending they found a secret sauce so they could produce content. But honestly, I really doubt that most of these folks were actually using this kind of shipping to actually scale. So you have this random YouTuber, let's call them YouTube Tiger King, all right, making a new video. Hey, go on AliExpress, filter for US shipping. Look, some of this stuff has 4 to 7 day shipping. Wow, that's amazing. It's going to change your business. By the way, please buy my course. I'm sure this is something that you've seen before, and you've probably seen lots of videos talking about this. And, you know, again, I really do think that a lot of this was just because of a lot of YouTubers out there thinking or in some ways pretending that they found something secretive. They found the secret to faster drop shipping. I hope that you realize now that a lot of the shipping speeds on AliExpress, regardless of what it is really not reliable at all. So, you know, this is kind of really where it started blowing up in terms of demand for this form of so-called US shipping or local shipping. And then, you know, what happened was that all of these AliExpress, all of these Chinese sellers, they realized there was a huge demand. They're like, I mean, trust me, just as there's actually communities for e-commerce in the West, there's also Chinese communities for sellers and suppliers as well. And then people realize, oh, wow, all these YouTubers, they're talking about US shipping. And well, we don't know how to do US shipping, and can we actually do it? And eventually, people figured out a way to kind of do it. And of course, given such a demand for US shipping and the fact that people would pay a premium for it, a lot of these sellers started offering their own forms of so-called US shipping. So now we get into how does it actually work? How does US shipping actually work? And let me ask you just a quick question before we go on here. Do you really think that there's tens or hundreds of thousands of AliExpress sellers offering US shipping? Do you really think that there's so many warehouses out there that actually support their business, that there's just constant streams of this inventory going into the US and being able to offer this kind of US shipping as if they're Amazon or ShipBob or not? The answer is no, by the way. So let's talk about exactly what they're doing here. So the vast majority of these sellers, when they say they're using US shipping, and by the way, again, this is the same for UK shipping, EU shipping, and whatnot, they're actually using a form of a special line. So for example, we use Unexpress. All right, so you can use Express, you can use 4PX, CNE, all sorts of these special lines. And what happens is that they start out as whatever service they originate in China, and then halfway on the way to the US, they actually generate a USPS tracking number. Now, with that tracking number, technically speaking, they can actually show to the client's customers that this seems like it's coming from the US, or the UK or whatever. Now, obviously, in some ways, this works, right? Because, let's talk about a technicality here. Technically speaking, it is a form of US shipping, because how these freight lines work is that they group all of your customer packages together. They put it on a plane. They deal with the customs processing themselves. They go through a US warehouse and they slap a USPS label on it. Now, technically speaking, I guess the second half of the journey, they are shipping from the US. Now, that being said, as you can see, this is not really the same as you actually dealing with a US warehouse that has thousands of units in stock and you're shipping right away to your customers as you actually fulfill these orders through them. So here's an example of what Express can do. So when we use something like Express, and again, this applies to a lot of special lines as well, after the package starts leaving China, it generates a USPS or a local last mile number. So here has an example, which is on the yuntrack.com website. You have the Express tracking number on the top left, and then you have the last mile tracking number, which is a USPS number. Now, what we usually do for clients is that we just provide the Express number. There's no reason to pretend that we're shipping from the US, right? But if a supplier wanted to, and actually even if our clients wanted to, they can just ask us to get the USPS number. And then on the bottom here, that's what it actually looks like. From the USPS side, it looks like they're waiting for shipment. And, that shipment can take however long. We don't know exactly. It depends on the situation. We'll talk about that a bit later. But again, it is going to look like US shipping. And during normal times when Express line takes like 5 to 8 days. Honestly, you can pass this off as US shipping. If you're getting 5 to 8 day delivery, it might as well be US shipping, right? So this is what the vast majority of sellers were doing to pretend that they actually do have US shipping. And by the way, sometimes when you use US shipping, especially if you're working with a large supplier or a large agent, they might say, oh, we can have US shipping, but then there's like a 2 to 4 day processing time before we can give you the tracking number. If they say something like that, most likely what they're doing is they're actually sending out the package as soon as possible, and they're waiting for the USPS tracking number to generate, because during normal times, express services, they normally take maybe 2 to 4 days, closer to 2 days, to actually generate a tracking number. So that's typically speaking the processing time that you actually get when you use US shipping in this way. Now, I'll be honest with you. Like I said earlier, during normal times, this method actually is fine. During normal times, Express to the US is 5 to 8 days, and sometimes even faster. And your customers get USPS trackings, they think it's from the US, and no one's the wiser, and the shipping times are fine, right? So that's usually fine in normal times. But the problem though is that they're really misrepresenting something here, right? If these suppliers are telling you, hey, this is actually a special line, we're giving you the USPS tracking, at least you actually know that. At least you're in more control of your business and you actually know what's happening, right? So we do actually have clients who say, hey, I really just want the last mile tracking. So that's something that we can actually provide, but it's the client's choice. Now, this entire thing completely breaks apart during unique periods, which honestly happens a lot through the year, by the way. So, here, For example, we have an example of someone posting in a group, hey, any thoughts about USPS from China to US? I mean, this actually, they're not even talking about US shipping, but they're actually clear that, hey, this is actually using a special line, but they got the USPS tracking. And this guy had, 100 orders since the 4th of April. It was April 15th when this was posted, all just getting stuck because of the COVID-19 situation. This is going to be what happens. This so-called US shipping, it's hugely impacted by any kind of slowdowns or disruptions in the China leg and also the customs processing and the handoff to USPS. This kind of service is going to suffer dramatically when you have a situation, for example, during COVID-19 and causing these extreme delays when normally something that is 5 to 8 days by express services for Express, at the worst times, they were taking up to 20 plus days. It's getting better now, but they were taking 20 plus days. And, you had so many of these dropshippers thinking they had 5 to 8 days shipping, thinking they had US shipping from AliExpress that still actually said like 4 to 7 days or 5 to 8 days or whatever, and advertising that to their customers. And then this all imploded because of the COVID-19 delays. These special lines got delayed. Everyone was getting their USPS tracking numbers, but they just had no information for sometimes weeks at a time. And that hurts your business. I mean, your customers are going to complain. They're going to be like, hey, this is US shipping. This is USPS. Why is it taking 2 weeks to actually make it to anywhere? And by the way, this also creates a big issue during Chinese holidays, during Chinese New Year's, when all of China is basically shut down for 2 weeks or more. Nothing is moving. One of the easier ways to tell if it's US shipping or not is that during Chinese New Year's, are they actually shipping? And most of it are not going to be shipping. And then you ask the seller, oh, if it's US shipping, why is it not shipping during Chinese New Year's? And you don't get a response for 2 weeks. All right. I'm sure many of you have seen that before as well. And then generally speaking, this is going to be a big problem if there's any delays on handing off to the USPS. I mean, look, I really think that these special lines, so I really like Express. I really think that these special lines are really amazing during normal times, but I'm just going to be honest with you. There's going to be times where there are going to be delays. There are going to be times where there are going to be disruptions. And I'm not saying that this is something that is going to kill your business, but at least if you actually know that this is a special line coming from China, you can prepare for it accordingly. You can talk to your suppliers like, hey, planes are getting backlogged. Hey, there are some delays with USPS. At least you can prepare accordingly and then message to your customers accordingly as well. What you don't want to happen is thinking that you have US shipping, thinking that it's going to get there within 1 week, and it doesn't arrive, and you ask the seller what's going on. They take a week to respond to you, and they're like, oh, sorry, there's been delays for whatever reason. I can't even count the number of excuses that I've seen clients and the dropshippers post from their sellers explaining why their so-called US shipping is severely delayed or not making it. The way that I think about logistics, the way that you should think about logistics is that you can't just plan for the good times. You have to plan for the worst times. Consistency is much more important than pure speeds as long as you message according to your customers. And the other thing is that you need to understand what's happening with your logistics. Stuff is going to happen. COVID-19 happens. And at that point, at least you know that if you're using a special line that's normally 5 to 8 days, you know it's coming from China, you at least know that there are issues with the planes or issues with backlogs, and then you can proactively talk with your customers, offer them discounts, or just be nice to them so that they're not going to come back to you, give you poor feedback, and kill your business. Now, I will add a caveat here is that there are actually some agents and some AliExpress sellers even that do actually use some form of US warehousing. There are actually services out there, third-party services out there that do actually offer this service, but they're very, very risky. Here's the problem, right? Inventory costs money. Sending stuff to another country costs money. Holding it in a warehouse costs money. I guarantee you that you don't have a bunch of AliExpress sellers trying to support dropshippers, and they're going to hold tens of thousands of units in a US warehouse just so they can wait for the next dropshipper to scale with their trending product. It just literally does not happen. So what typically happens is that you have some of these sellers, they have some US warehouse inventory, but it might be like 500, or it might be 1,000 or so, right? And then don't forget, AliExpress, I mean, obviously dropshippers are really using AliExpress with success. AliExpress is also for consumer goods, right? So a lot of these units are actually for consumer sales, US customers who are buying directly from this store, for example. Now, say a seller, they have 500 units, right? That's actually not bad. Honestly, like you thinking about you investing in 500 units or 1,000 units, that's honestly a pretty big cost for you as well as a dropshipper. So AliExpress seller holding 500 units at a US warehouse, that's quite an investment for them. And then you as a dropshipper, you might order a few test orders, gets there in 5 days. Wow, this is amazing. This is real US shipping. And then you start testing your product. You do like maybe 5 orders per day, and all your customers get all their products in like, 4 days because it actually is real US shipping. And then you start to scale. What happens? You start to scale to 50 units per day. This seller just started with 500 units. 50 units per day is 10 days worth of inventory. And then you're just one dropshipper, by the way. As you know, when something gets hot, there's multiple dropshippers selling the same thing. That inventory is going to go away super fast. And one thing that I'll be very honest with AliExpress sellers is that they are not great at inventory management. They're not doing analysis and forecasting demand and things like that. They're not constantly thinking about, oh, this is going to sell out, so I'm going to send another 2,000, 5,000. They're not thinking that. What happens is that they sell out in a US warehouse. Oh, shoot. And then they have to scramble to get another shipment out there, which could actually take anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks or even more to get that shipment out there to that warehouse and ready for processing. And during that time, you're going to get significant delays, or they're going to come back to you and say, hey, we're out of stock. So you have these 400 orders, we're going to ship it all from China, and that's going to take 2 to 3 weeks, and it defeats the purpose in the first place, right? So this is also why that even though that there is some US warehousing out there for these AliExpress sellers, you can't trust it at all, because these guys, they're not managing their inventory and forecasting inventory to support dropshipping scaling. Like it's just not something that people do, because it's not a wise business decision for these sellers to hold that much inventory just to hope that someone comes along and does great volume with them. All right, so we talked enough about what's not working with them and why you shouldn't really risk your business with these forms of US or local shipping. So what's the better alternative out there? What can you actually do to try to get as fast shipping speeds as possible? So if you want US shipping, that's fine, but you got to commit to real US shipping. You got to work with an actual 3PL. You got to work with an actual fulfillment center. You got to invest in inventory, hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of units. You got to figure out a way to ship it over to the US or the EU or wherever, where you're going to spend a ton of money if you're using air freight, which takes maybe a week, 2 weeks or so. Or if you want to actually get some savings from this, you're going to use sea freight, which during normal periods is going to take 3 weeks at least. And then you got to figure out how to make sure that that gets to your warehouse and processed efficiently. And during this period, during COVID-19, you're looking at 30, 60 days plus of getting your inventory if you're using sea freight shipments. And then after you get there, you're going to want to use a service that is reputable, like ShipBob. Shopify now has a fulfillment service. Rakuten Super Logistics is pretty good, or you can use fulfillment by Amazon. Now, all of these have costs. They're not only the cost of you just purchasing and fulfilling an order from AliExpress or from an agent. They have warehousing costs. They have pick and pack fees. They have a lot of costs that if you really add it all up, honestly speaking, because we've done this analysis before, we were considering opening our own US fulfillment center, but we really just focus on China, is because if you add all the costs up, unless you have a very, very light product, and I'm talking about like 10 grams, unless you have a very light product or a very, very heavy product, US fulfillment in terms of cost almost never makes sense. And then in terms of timing as well, during normal times, we have express special lines that take 5 to 8 days. Honestly, if you have US fulfillment, considering the cost, I mean, it's really not that much of a difference. Now, frankly, in the last couple months, it's been terrible in terms of delays from China during COVID-19. Obviously, if you somehow pre-planned this and you had a bunch of US stock, then you wouldn't get these delays as much. But you can't really plan for a pandemic. So although there were a lot of delays, even with express shipping options from China, they're going to get better as a temporary thing. And just normally speaking, in terms of cost effectiveness, again, unless you have a super light product or a super heavy product, almost all the time the costs make it so that either China fulfillment is cheaper or it's pretty similar costs. But a quick note here though is that if you actually go with this method, you really lose all of the traditional benefits of the drop shipping model. That's being able to be flexible, that's being able to get your agent to just get a bunch of inventory like in 3 days, to be able to fulfill as you need, to be able to invest not that much time and effort in a product and be able to move on to something else if it doesn't really work out. And the other cost that people don't really think about is lead time in itself is a cost. So if you're shipping stuff to the US, you're going to see, again, somewhere between a week to 3 weeks or even 5 weeks if you buy ship of additional lead time that you got to plan for. And that's a cost, because if you plan for too much, you're going to have wasted inventory you can't sell out. If you plan for too little, you're going to lose sales, and you have to consider China fulfillment anyways. So I do really believe, I mean, look, working with a traditional fulfillment center obviously is the more traditional e-commerce model. And I'm saying that's completely fine. If you want to go that route, I mean, that's very smart. But you have to realize that it is what it is. It's not dropshipping anymore. You don't get the same flexibility anymore. I do think that if eventually you're building like a $10 million brand and you're like almost guaranteed to sell through your inventory, then yeah, definitely have US fulfillment. But I'm assuming that a lot of you guys like aren't there yet. A lot of you guys are just trying to, kind of build an e-commerce brand. And I really think that anywhere from starting out all the way to like really until you're making millions of dollars per year and you know that you have guaranteed sales volume, all that time you should be really not considering US fulfillment because of all the costs and disadvantages involved, unless your product is somehow specifically suited for this kind of fulfillment. And then this is actually where I give a little bit of a plug for our service. Now, I'm obviously using us as an example, but really working with any kind of trustworthy agent, private fulfillment service in China, you're going to get the next best thing compared to actually US shipping. And actually you get a lot of benefits as well, because you don't have to worry about a lot of the inflexibilities of the model of shipping it to the US. I really suggest that after you have a product that really starts to work out, and maybe you got lucky with an Aliexpress US seller that has some inventory, so you still have some fast shipping for limited orders, but immediately you should really try to find a good private agent in China, someone who's going to help you stock inventory, help you hold that inventory, and help you fulfill those orders using a special line as fast as possible. Now, again, right now in the last couple months, it was COVID-19, so there's been a lot of delays even in the special express lines. Normally, we were looking at 5 to 8 days. During April, early May or so, we're looking at, up to 20 days or so, even with the express line, though a lot of that does arrive faster. However, things have been improving every single day, and I fully expect that after a couple months, once the pandemic actually stabilizes, the shipping speeds are going to get back to normal. And when they are back to normal, again, when you're looking at 5 to 8 day or even 5 to 10 day delivery speeds from China, everything is tracked, everything is trustworthy, you know exactly what's going on, then, you know, especially if you consider the cost involved, the cost calculations for most products, you're going to find yourself in a much better situation working with a private, trusted fulfillment agent in China who's going to be able to source products for you, hold products for you, and fulfill them for you. All right, so hope that video was helpful. A lot of you guys who followed me have probably heard me say this so many times, but I just decided I finally had to make a video on it because so many people have been hurt by this idea of US shipping and not having it been real. And especially recently, this really starts to become a huge problem during times like Q4, during times like Chinese New Year, during times like COVID-19. And you know, there's a lot of new folks who probably didn't hear this from me. So I really hope this was useful. I really hope that this helped you think about how to protect yourself, think about how to be smarter about your logistics, and, you know, really not latching on to kind of just simple marketing gimmicks, YouTubers talking about it, fake shipping times on Aliexpress. And really, you should be thinking a lot more about how your supply chain actually works and understand when there are issues so you can manage your business effectively and just overall just have more knowledge of how everything works to build your business better. All right, so thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, sign up for notifications. It does really help the YouTube algorithm because I do really want to share more useful content like this, and I really want just more and more folks to learn about and get knowledge in operations and logistics. I really think that no matter how good your marketing prowess is, learning more about how the supply chain works, how operations works, how logistics works is going to help. And we also do have a Facebook group, the EcommOps group. I'll link it below, so please join for a lot more up-to-date discussions on operations and logistics in general. And finally, we do run a premium high-end China fulfillment service. If you want to work with us and you have consistent orders, please check out our link below as well, and we're happy to start on a quote with you and happy to talk with you and hopefully partner with you to grow your business and take it to new heights. All right, well, until next time, this is Dayu from EcommOps. See you later.